Finéus. I am a visual artist, but I am originally from Ottawa, in Canada, and I grew up there most of my life, and then I spent some time in Toronto as well. And I've come here to actually do some of my master program at Columbia University. And I started the Lakou NOU residency during the summer with. Yeah, so in terms of the subject matter of the work that I do, I work really around the idea of migration. I think the first step for me usually comes with a lot of research and images and archival type of collecting that happens for me. So that can take shape through collecting images like these, which I've been really interested in migration, particularly Asian migration, and thinking about what kind of geographies and spaces we've had to go through. And I kind of collect these and create walls of images. I also travel a lot to these spaces. So I've been to Florida, of course, and I have other places that I want to also hit, like New Orleans, and of course, Haiti as well. Haiti in itself, which I haven't gone. I think for me, having my practice has been a way to also kind of create links between the spaces that are really closer to me, and really realizing how that kind of there's kind of like this bridge between Haiti and the different places that we kind of inhabit as a community. Historicity, especially gaps in histories, I've been really interested in the reading or basing a lot of the practice around my reading of Silencing the Past by Michel Trouillot and the way in which he details a lot of the gaps in Asian history, but how that also kind of relates to a lot of the bigger world histories in which when there's a gap in historicity, then that also kind of details bigger issues, if that makes sense. So I've been interested in his way of thinking about that and Black geographies, as well as thinking about Maroons and the history behind Maroons and the Caribbean, and also their link between how they were thinking and how they were kind of going for freedom and thinking about freedom, and the way in which migrants do the same as well. And bringing that in a painting practice. Yeah, so when it comes to this idea of home for the Asian diaspora, um, I feel for me, there's kind of definitely this displacement that happens, I think, for a lot of people in our community, whether it is something that we've had to, go through willingly, or something that just comes with, diasporic um, heritage, where you're born in another country, and therefore this is kind of like the life that you have, where you have to contend with the new spaces where the space that surrounds you, and how to really find ways of identifying home. And I think that is embedded in like objects and moments and um, anything that feels or that has kind of like a cultural resonance that kind of can bring you back to maybe memories of like your childhood. And I think that is how I would define home, or how I think about it in the works that I do, where it is so embedded in land and in geographies and landscape, but it's also thinking about the ways in which all these landscapes, even though they feel like they can be more general, they have all these specificities that kind of just continue, and that when you start to identify the things, or the objects or the things that kind of repeat, then you sense that there is a way in which we're all connected throughout. And, even just thinking about like something like warmth or like summer, and kind of identifying this as like coming from like a more Caribbean, Asian type of space, but then that continues even wherever you go, and the season and those kind of changes also can be like an indicator of feeling more at home. Or yeah, so in terms of my residency with Haiti Cultural Exchange, I think we started around during the late summer of 2023, and essentially I really wanted to do something that I was really exploring in my paintings, which had to do with this idea of the emotional fugitive in relationship to migration and to Maroon history, but really wanting to kind of bridge a lot of the stories of Asian today with what I really envisioned them um, to have had to go through historically, if that makes sense. So I think the residency allowed me to really open up like my community practice I've kind of had in mind to do for years now, but never really had the kind of resources or the kind of organizational backbone and to really help in forwarding my my ideas around it and also talking about emotional processing and talking about those kind of trauma induced type of experiences also entails that you have to deal and work with people that know how to work with that kind of community. So I was also put in conversation with some amazing collaborators like Fadia Jean-Pierre and Linda Duvernay, which are both therapists and also people that deal with mental health. And I really wanted to use my tools such as visual art and bridge also like this idea of mental health and emotional processing through a series of workshops essentially. And we've done 5 workshops altogether, and that was divided with working with both organizations of Asians United for Progress and Diaspora Community Services, and also with my both collaborators of Fadia and Linda. And we kind of built this series of workshop called Nula, or We're Here, We Have Arrived, that is speaking on just different themes of like being, and now that we have arrived, like what can we do to make sure that we feel whole and that there are like tools that are out there. um, so the neighborhood that I was assigned was essentially Crown Heights, and I think that was really great actually in terms of the relationship and the work that I've been meaning to do since a lot of the organization are based in Crown Heights as well. My relationship to Crown Heights actually, I think, kind of flourished from the residency. I think another takeaway was to definitely like seeing how there's all these emotions or all these aspects that are more common around mental health and known like in the Western world that are really difficult to kind of translate in Creole and in within an Asian context that to me I think was a challenge in terms of wanting to speak about these issues. I think that also made me realize a lot more the ways in which we were hurting as a community. And that was another thing that kind of came out of the workshop that made me feel like, in the future, that might be like a more of a focus point for me. I think I learned a lot of things about myself around how I kind of interact with the community as well, specifically people that are just coming into the country as well, like how there's kind of like, of course, I knew there would be like a kind of like gap there as well, but really wanting to bridge that gap was something that the residency gave me space for, and also understanding how I can better myself in the future and what kind of tools that I need to reach for between now and the next time that I do like another set of workshops, which like the first thing is probably learning Creole, and then we'll get to like really go more in depth into all the parts that I think that I want or envision for this project in the future. So I'm really grateful for HCS and the way that all the tools were provided, and I think there was a lot of support as well in terms of like creating those kind of relationships and also centering the project in the community.